I've been building my own kingdom for everyone to see. It exists to keep me safe from harm, and it's intact to glorify me. Nobody helped me build this up. It was me and me alone. I've appointed myself as the king, and I've given myself the throne. But it turns out I'm no ruler, and I have no control. So I have decided to destroy it all. I'm tearing down the walls, kicking down the doors. Everything inside this kingdom is yours. 'Cause what I've made is worthless, and it cannot stand. Come and breathe some life into my empty, cold, dead hands. Down with the fickle king, away with this fantasy. You are the one I need. Death to the kingdom of me. Death to the kingdom of me. I should probably be frightened. This empire's all I know, but it always does more damage than good. I'm afraid it's gotta go. I know that I can't be trusted, 'cause I'm just a man. And if you hadn't given your life for me, a loser would be all that I am. You know they say just follow your heart. I'm afraid that's a load of trash. Your heart will take you down to deep, dark places where you feel like you'll never come back. So I'm coming out of the dark. This facade is I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. Yeah, I woke up feeling like it might be a good day to get it done. That's right. Oh, the stadium is just like my second house. Now I'm two-tone talking, they can't shut my mouth. I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up. Yeah, 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 yeah. I woke up feeling like it was time to tighten up.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Two-Tone Talk by God Pod. It is a rainy, at least where I am, it is a rainy, dark, gloomy Monday morning, and that's what happens when it's the Eagles and the Chiefs playing in the Super Bowl. Good to see everybody here today for the Two-Tone Talk by God Pod, episode 145. And today, this is the kind of stuff I like talking about. This is the kind of dorky stuff I like getting into. And that is, we've talked a lot about the quarterback position for the Tennessee Titans as they have the number one pick in the draft. A lot of possibilities going into the 2025 season, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. But today we're going to look at the rest of the offense, just the offensive side of the ball. We're going to look at ways that the Tennessee Titans can try to begin fixing what's broken with their offense. Now, what were the issues in 2024? Quarterback, offensive line, particularly right tackle, but maybe a little bit of some other positions as well. Lack of explosive plays at wide receiver. And so we're going to look today at some options for the Tennessee Titans going into 2025 on the offensive side of the ball. And we're going to start with the offensive line. So we know J.C. Latham's going to be back at left tackle. Well, one would think, but who knows. J.C. Latham back at left tackle. Peter Skoronski, who I thought had a solid year back at left guard. I'm assuming Lloyd Cushenberry will be back at center. I'm assuming his injury, I think they said he's planning on being back for week 1. So I'm assuming from left to center is all back. And then you have a right guard situation. Dylan Radins, the lone survivor from the 2021 draft, the only guy left on the team from the 2021 draft, he's a free agent. So it's not a guarantee that Dylan Radins is going to be back with the Tennessee Titans. Certainly an option that I like. I thought Dylan Radins was pretty good this season. Are there better right guards in the league? Sure, but I actually thought Dylan Radins improved and looked like a starting NFL offensive lineman this season. And I feel like he's probably the cheapest option. I mean, listen, the Titans don't need to have to go draft a right guard. As you're going to see, the closer we get to the draft, there are so many needs on this team, especially if you've got to address quarterback in the first round. You've got, and you don't have a third round pick as of right now. You got a lot of things you need to address. You don't need to add right guard to the list. So I feel like whether Dylan Radins re-signs or not, Titans are going to have to address right guard through free agency, I think. And so if it doesn't work out with Dylan Radins, I mean, listen, you've got Trey Smith with the Kansas City Chiefs, who's set to be a free agent. You've got Kevin Zeitler from Detroit. He played with the Lions this year. He's set to be a free agent. You've got Mekhi Becton, who played with the Philadelphia Eagles this year. All of these guys would be great additions to the offensive line. Here's the issue. I feel like any of those three guys are going to cost a good bit more than Dylan Radins. And rightfully so, they're probably better players than Dylan Radins. But, I mean, Mekhi Becton in particular, I mean, yeah, he had a great year for Philadelphia. Philadelphia's got a fantastic offensive line. But Mekhi Becton, his former team that he was with, I mean, it didn't work out at all. The guy looked like a complete bust. Then he goes to Philadelphia, and all of a sudden he's Superman. I mean, yeah, these are guys you could pick up in free agency. I just worry. I know the Titans have some money to spend. Not as much as they had last offseason, but I still think the Titans are in top 5 in terms of cap space and money to spend. The issue is, how much money do we want to put in to a right guard? I mean, maybe it's worth it because, look, we have seen firsthand how important it is to have a solid offensive line, okay? Look at the Chiefs and the Eagles in the Super Bowl. They both have great offensive lines. Detroit, who had a great season, great offensive line. Okay, what's holding Houston back? Well, they have a bad offensive line. What's holding a lot of teams back? I mean, let's just be honest. Chicago. What's one of the key reasons Caleb Williams has had such a miserable rookie year? Terrible offensive line. You've got to get offensive line fixed. So when it comes to, if you have to replace Dylan Radins at right guard, I'm not totally opposed to forking up some money because haven't we seen, especially if you're going to draft a young quarterback, you need to have the best possible offensive line that you can have. So maybe you do go after one of those veterans, especially Smith coming from Kansas City, Zeitler coming from Detroit, Becton coming from Philadelphia. Maybe you do just fork up some money. If Dylan Radins isn't the guy, maybe you fork up some money and say, you know what, we've got to fix this. And it's worth spending money on. Maybe so. Right tackle. Obviously, this is just the sore thumb. I mean, this is, first of all, I think the Titans need to just cut everybody that played right tackle for them this year. Cut Leroy Watson, cut Nicholas Petitfrere, just get him off the team. Send a message, get him off the team. And when it comes to a guy like Jalen Duncan, yeah, if you want to keep him around as a depth piece, I mean, he's young, he's a big guy. So if you want to keep him around and just let him kind of, you know, be a swing guy if he can, no pun intended, swing that would be fine. But the Titans starting right tackle is not on the current roster, and the Titans have made that clear, right? They've made that clear that they know that is a position that has got to be fixed. It's one of their top priorities. So when I look at that, I say, okay, depending on what happens with Dylan Radins at right guard, you might have to replace the entire right side of the offensive line. I don't want the Titans to spend their first round pick on an offensive tackle. There are some rumors that the Titans could trade back, take an offensive tackle. The fact of the matter is, I'm pretty sure the Patriots are going to take the offensive tackle with the 4th pick. I think the Patriots are about locked into that. So I don't think unless the Titans take the offensive tackle with one of the top 3 picks in the draft, I will go jump off a cliff. Not that I don't understand how big of a need that is, but when you have a shot at any of these, either of the 2 quarterbacks, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, and you're going to take an offensive tackle, that's just that would be the most Tennessee Titans thing ever, but I don't want that. So I look to free agency, and looking to free agency for a starting right tackle scares the crap out of me. Because a lot of teams don't let their tackles hit free agency because they know how important it is. If you've got a good tackle on your team, you need to pay them and you need to keep them. A lot of teams aren't letting these tackles hit free agency. But if they, there are some guys who are going to be on free agency who are older, who scare the crap out of me, such as Ronnie Stanley, who's been a left tackle for, I believe, Baltimore. I mean, listen, we've talked about the idea of moving J.C. Latham to right tackle. Do you bring in Ronnie Stanley, veteran left tackle, put him over there, and then put Latham at right tackle? That's an option, but it just scares the crap out of me. Scares the crap out of me. Because when I look at Ronnie Stanley, and I don't want to be disrespectful to him, all I have are flashbacks of Andre Dillard. I have flashbacks of Dennis Daly. I just have flashbacks, especially Dillard, because that was a free agent that we picked up. That's a little different situation. Dillard was a free agent who had been a high draft pick, who had not really panned out in Philly, so maybe a change of scenery will help him. Ronnie Stanley's a veteran. Yeah, you could put Ronnie Stanley at left tackle and move Latham to right. Scares me. Tyron Smith, there's your one. You can move Tyron Smith to left tackle, move JC to right. Injuries scare me. Tyron Smith has dealt with those. Scares me. Cam Robinson. This is the one. I mean, you could either put Cam Robinson at left tackle, move JC to right, or keep JC at left tackle, put Cam Robinson at right tackle. This is another one that really, really scares me. This one especially screams Andre Dillard. Just screams Andre Dillard. I don't know what... I don't know. I'm worried about this offensive line situation because, yes, like I said, if the Titans don't re-sign Dylan Radins, I think you've got to approach the right guard position through free agency. I've talked about some of the premier names. And again, like Mr. or Mrs. Woods said in the chat, Titans could get Trey Smith because of Mike Morganzi with the Kansas City ties. Hey, maybe so. That would be a good option. But as far as right tackle, the idea of going and getting Cam Robinson or Tyron Smith or moving JC over there and getting a new left tackle, that all just puts knots in my stomach. What I think the Titans are going to do, what I think is the best case scenario, first of all, I think they need to re-sign Dylan Radins. Unless you can just get an unbelievably good deal for a guy like Trey Smith, unless you can just get a steal with one of those guys, I would re-sign Dylan Radins. I thought he played well. I think he's the cheapest option, and I'm all about the camaraderie on the offensive line. I want to keep that group together as much as you can. I think the offensive line actually improved for Tennessee outside of the right tackle position. I think J.C. Latham, yeah, he had his peaks and valleys, but overall, I thought he was okay. I think Peter Skoronski was good. I think the center position was a lot more stable, even once Lloyd Cushenberry got hurt. And then what's his name? Brunskill had to come in and play. Even Corey Levin played a little bit. I feel good about that situation at center. It's the right side of the offensive line. I would try to re-sign Dylan Radins, bring him back at right guard. Like they said in the chat, if you re-sign Radins, he doesn't have to learn a new offense. The offensive line, 4 out of 5 of them are able to come back in. They already know each other. They've already been working together. They've already been working with Bill Callahan, and now you just have one new addition at right tackle. And what I think the Titans need to do, unless they can just get the deal of all deals for a premier right tackle in a trade or something, which I don't think they will, I think they're going to draft a right tackle in the second round of the draft. That's my gut feeling. Regardless of what they do in the first round, whether they take Abdul Carter, whether they take Travis Hunter, whether they take one of the 2 quarterbacks, either way, I think with pick, I believe 35, which is the 3rd pick, I think, of the second round, I think the Titans are going to take a right tackle right there. That's my gut feeling, because they've just talked about how important it is to build up the trenches. They've talked about that offensive line. They've been very transparent about the right tackle position. They've said time and time again, this has got to get fixed. This has got to get fixed. We have got to do something about this. But my question is, what scares you more going into 2025? Does it scare you more to have a veteran come in that gives you shades of an Andre Dillard type situation? Or does it scare you more to take a tackle in the second round of the draft, have them come in and play right tackle, and now you got another young guy that you've got to mold, while J.C. Latham's still young, Peter Skoronski's still young, Dylan Radins, if he comes back, is still, I consider to be a young player. So you've got a young offensive line. So I don't know, maybe that makes them lean more toward the idea of bringing in a veteran free agent to play right tackle. Bringing up Jedrick Wills. I mean, it's because we've gotten burned by so many free agent tackles lately. I just get scared. But you know what? Bill Callahan's here, and maybe he can work some magic, whether it's a second round tackle over there or whether they hit up free agency. Running back. I think running back, I mean, you're going to have Pollard and Spears back. My thing here, if I'm the Titans, I would really consider, because this is such a deep running back class, and I think you can get a good running back in the 4th or 5th round. If I'm the Titans, I would strongly consider drafting a running back later in the draft, because Tyjae Spears had such a disappointing season. Injuries, missed a lot of time. Obviously, he showed flashes. He showed flashes, especially late in the season, of that Tyjae Spears that we remembered from his rookie year that was so special. But I definitely have questions about Tyjae Spears as we go into the 2025 season. I hope it works out because I like him, but the injuries are a major concern. And with Tony Pollard now being another year older, and I thought Tony Pollard was great for the Titans this year, but with Pollard being another year older, you're going to need Spears, the younger guy, to take a step up. And I think you need some insurance that's better than Julius Chestnut in case he doesn't. I like Scattaboo. I liked Scattaboo from Arizona State. I feel like he would be a good addition. But, I think this is a deep running back class. I think the Titans could get a running back that could contribute late in the draft. I know there's a lot of holes on the team. And so it's like, man, do we really want to spend a draft pick on a running back when we've already got 2? But just the doubts with Tyjae Spears and his health is the only reason why I would say maybe take a running back at some point. Now let's get to wide receiver. The only guarantee on this wide receiving group coming back this year is Calvin Ridley. He's the only one guaranteed to be back because Westbrook Akine is a free agent. Tyler Boyd is a free agent. Traylon Burks, that experiment is over. And we traded Hopkins. So the only guaranteed guy to be back on that wide receiving group right now is Calvin Ridley. Let me just first of all get this out of the way. Yes, we should sign Nick Westbrook-Akine to a longer-term contract to lock him down. That's fine. We don't need to spend a lot of money on Nick Westbrook-Akine, but I would love to be able to give him a multi-year deal that allows him to stay around. That's not going to fix this wide receiving group. I know we love NWI, and I hope he's back on the team. Signing NWI to a multi-year deal is not going to fix what's wrong. If you bring Tyler Boyd back, that's not going to fix what's wrong. Okay? You need some youth in this wide receiver room, and that scares me because I'm mentioning being scared a lot. I'm very with what I feel like every move the Titans make in free agency or trades or whatever, it always ends up poorly. So I'm really scared of everything. But the Titans don't have a third-round pick, and I hate that. We gave up our third-round pick for L'Jarius Sneed. We could always trade up into the third round because we do have some draft capital in later rounds, but if you go the route I'm saying and you take an offensive tackle in the second round, I mean, unless you take Travis Hunter in the first round, which they could do, but let's say you don't. Let's say you don't take Travis Hunter. You're telling me you're not going to get a wide receiver until the fourth round at the earliest? And then you're going to rely on that guy to come in and bring some youth to the wide receiver room. I'm not saying you can't get a good wide receiver in the fourth round. Lord knows you can. But you need youth. Because if you look at the free agent market, I mean, let's just talk about T. Higgins. T. Higgins, how old is T. Higgins? Let's look that up. Because Calvin Ridley, he's going to be 30, 31 by the time the season rolls around. How old is T. Higgins? T. Higgins is only 26 years old. T. Higgins is only 26. So the problem there is that T. Higgins is going to cost a lot of money. Like, you're already paying Calvin Ridley $92 million. So I saw today a projected contract for T. Higgins is like over $100 million. Do you want to have that much money tied up in your wide receiver room with Calvin Ridley and T. Higgins when you don't even know, like, quarterback-wise, you don't know if you're going to have a bridge guy, you got a rookie who, is going to have to learn the ropes. Like, are we really going to spend a bunch of money on T. Higgins to come here and just be here? I don't think that's a smart decision, especially, I mean, I know he's only 26, but T. Higgins has already dealt with injuries. I just don't think that's a smart decision because we paid Calvin Ridley a bunch of money last offseason to come play wide receiver. I understand T. Higgins is an unbelievable talent. I think he would be wide receiver 1 if he came here. But I just don't see how that makes much sense for the Titans right now. As much as I like T. Higgins and as much as I'd love to have him, T. Higgins to me would make sense for a team like New England. As much as I would hate to see that, I think he would make sense for a team like New England. Second-year guy in Drake May that they really believe in. They're probably going to take an offensive tackle in the first round. They need some talent at wide receiver. They've got the most cap space of anybody in the NFL. T. Higgins makes sense to go to a team like the Patriots. I don't think T. Higgins to the Titans makes any sense at all. So when you look at the other free agents, Stephon Diggs, coming off a major injury, production's been down the last 2 years. I mean, if you drafted a good young wide receiver and then you paired him with Ridley, maybe you get another young wide receiver in a later round of the draft, and then you bring in a guy like Stephon Diggs, the ghost of Stephon Diggs. It's not like, it's not the worst thing in the world. I just don't know if Stephon Diggs has it in him to not be one of the. I mean, Stephon Diggs is a competitor, man. He's one of those guys. He wants to be front and center. I don't know if Stephon Diggs would enjoy being on the Tennessee Titans with either a rookie quarterback or a bridge quarterback, whichever one it is. I don't think Stephon Diggs is going to be crazy about that. He's been playing with Josh Allen and C.J. Stroud the last however many years. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of older guys on the free agent wire, wide receiver. Keenan Allen, not interested at all. Amari Cooper, not interested at all. Chris Godwin, I can't believe Chris Godwin's only 27 years old. I mean, I was surprised at that because Chris Godwin, when I thought of him, I was like, oh, Chris Godwin's got to be like 31, 32 years old. He's 27. He's been with Tampa Bay forever. I would be interested in Chris Godwin. The only problem there is he's coming off of a major injury. Major injury. So that's scary. But, you know, like I said, it depends what role you're bringing him in. If you've got Calvin Ridley, if you've got a young guy, you know, that maybe you took in the second round, if you don't take a tackle there, and then you bring in Chris Godwin, that could be interesting. Chris Godwin intrigues me more than Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper or Stephon Diggs. Probably a cheaper option. I'll tell you one guy that interests me is Juwan Jennings. I feel like his name comes up every year. He's with San Francisco. You know, I feel like he's always a free agent. I feel like Juwan Jennings' name is always thrown out. A lot of people would want to see that because he's an alum of Tennessee Volunteers. You asked what would my take be if we drafted Travis Hunter in the chat. I mean, generational player, right? I mean, if ever that applied to somebody, it'd be him. I mean, he's a phenomenal talent. And I think if you draft him, if you draft Travis Hunter, then you don't even need to worry about a second round wide receiver. Do you see the only good thing about not drafting a quarterback is that you could go Travis Hunter, then in the second round you take a tackle and you've knocked out two of your biggest needs. Now you miss out on the edge rushers, so that sucks. But Juwan Jennings, back to Juwan Jennings. That could be interesting. I think, you know, he's been behind Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk in San Francisco, so that's opened up an avenue for him to really benefit from those two guys getting so much attention. Not sure how he would do in an environment where more of the concentration is on him. But yeah, I think that that would be interesting. I don't think that's going to reignite the wide receiving group. I could see him maybe coming in and being like a Rashard Matthews was for Tennessee, where he just overperforms. Looking at trades, though, there are some trades that'd be interesting. Hassani in the chat, why are you yelling? Why are you in all caps, bro? There are some trades that I think could be interesting for the Titans. The only thing that, you know, doesn't work out with a trade is what would you have to give up to get these guys? DK Metcalf. I'll throw that name out there. DK Metcalf kind of has fallen up by the wayside in Seattle. Smith Jigba has come in there and kind of taken over the wide receiver one role in many people's eyes. DK Metcalf, could that be a possible trade target maybe for Titans? What would you have to give up? I don't know. I mean, the Titans aren't in position to give up any draft capital because we already don't have a third rounder. But somebody mentioned, is there a player possibly that the Seahawks would want from us? Somebody mentioned Big Hank mentioned Roger McCreary. I like Roger McCreary. I think he's a good player, still on a rookie deal. You know, would you trade a guy like that? Would you trade Harold Landry? I mean, how bad does DK want to get out of there? I mean, DK Metcalf would be a highly sought-after trade target. I don't know what the Titans would have to give up to get him. But, I mean, you want to talk about an A.J. Brown type build. I mean, DK Metcalf, big old dude. I mean, him and AJ, I mean, they played at Ole Miss together. They're best friends. So, I mean, that would at least make us feel like we were getting some relief from that A.J. Brown trade, is that at least we got his buddy. So you could get, you know, you could target DK Metcalf in a trade. Still a young guy. Only problem is, I mean, we've seen that he, you know, maybe has some attitude issues in the locker room, I think, but that seems to have calmed down because, you know, I think he kind of figured out, I think we need to chill out with this. So DK Metcalf, the one that I think I would want the most is Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson, a lot of rumors about him getting traded from the Jets. Now, if you if you make a trade for, first of all, there's no telling what you would have to give up for Garrett Wilson in a trade. I think you're looking at, I mean, I just don't see this happening because you're trading an early round draft pick, and the Titans can't afford to do that. I mean, there are players, I guess, that you could offer up, but I just don't. I don't see how this would be possible for the Titans. But I, Garrett Wilson would be great. You could forget about signing Aaron Rodgers as a bridge quarterback in that scenario, but I just don't. This is so far fetched, I think, because of what you would have to give up to get him. I just don't think the Titans have. If the Titans were in a better situation with their roster defensively or with a good offensive line, then this trade would make sense. But there's still so many other holes to fill that even if you make a huge trade for Garrett Wilson, okay, does that make you a Super Bowl contender right away? No. So that's far fetched. But George Pickens is another option. Once again, a guy who I saw give little to zero effort at times for Pittsburgh this season. So you have some attitude issues there potentially. And again, no telling how much you have to give up for him because he's a talented young wide receiver. The problem is Titans wide receiver room needs youth. So if you look to the draft, if you were to look at the second round, this is if you don't draft Travis Hunter. Tell you who's been showing out at Senior Day. They're doing the Senior Bowl and everything. The guy that's been showing out is Jaden Higgins. Jaden Higgins. I remember that name. I don't know if he's going to make it to the second round, but you want to talk about, I watched some of his film from the Senior Bowl on X, Titans reporters that are there just uploading different reps. Oh, flashbacks of AJ. I mean, just big old boy. Big old boy with speed that can go up and get the ball. I don't know if he's going to make it to the second round, but man, I'd be excited about that. A lot of people talking about Tez Johnson from Oregon, who's had a really good Senior Bowl. Only problem there, he's so small. That's what scares me about him, is just the size. I like my wide receivers bigger. I like the A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf type build. Like you guys said, Ty Felton. He's had a really good Senior Bowl too. Xavier Restrepo from Miami. That's a name to watch out for, especially if the Titans were to draft Cam Ward. If you draft Cam Ward, we saw the Broncos last year when they drafted Bo Nix. They went out and drafted, who was the wide receiver from Oregon that Denver? Somebody help me in the chat. Denver, they drafted Bo Nix, and then they went and drafted a wide receiver that he had from Oregon in a later round because they just knew they would already have chemistry and, they could already have that established thing. I don't even know what kind of a season the guy had for Denver. Somebody help me. Somebody will remember. But if I say all that to say, if you draft Cam Ward, it wasn't Marvin Mims. Now I got to look at Troy something. It was Troy something or another. Dang, this has nothing to do with anything, but now I got to figure out. Denver Broncos. Troy Franklin. Thank you, Mason. Mason in the chat got it. Troy Franklin. So the Denver Broncos drafted Bo Nix, and then they went out later and drafted Troy Franklin because he played with Bo Nix at Oregon. So if the Titans drafted Cam Ward, could you go get Xavier, and I hope I'm saying his name right, Restrepo, to kind of already have that established connection? That's a possibility too. The guys from Texas, Matthew Golden, Isaiah Bond. I really am not crazy about Isaiah Bond. I watched him at Alabama when he was there. The Alabama version of Isaiah Bond, I really liked. But at Texas, I feel like the Matthew Golden guy. I mean, if you hear Texas fans talk about it on X or on online or on social media, they prefer Golden over Bond. They're saying, if I was drafting a wide receiver, I would take Matthew Golden over Isaiah Bond. And a lot of people are saying Isaiah Bond really needed to go back to college again because he really took a step back. So if it came down to one of those two, I really don't want Isaiah Bond. I like Matthew Golden a little more. The Ohio State guy, Emeka Egbuka, I hope I'm saying his name correctly. I really like that guy, but I don't see any way in the world that he would still be around by the time the Titans are picking in the second round. I don't see him still there. Another guy that I would love, but we're not going to have a shot at him. He's not going to be there by the second round, and that's Luther Burden. I would love him or Trey Harris. I don't think either one of them are going to be there for the Titans by the time that second round rolls around. But Restrepo, I think, could be there. Jaden Higgins, again, who I'm very intrigued by after watching the Senior Bowl. I think that would be very intriguing to me. And Tez Johnson, like I said, just small. I'm not crazy about that. So that's going to be the decision, though. What do you do in the second round? Assuming, okay, let's say you take either Abdul Carter or you take one of the two quarterbacks in the first round. Second round, you got a decision to make. Do you go tackle? Do you go wide receiver? I feel like every year the Titans are faced with this dilemma at some point. Do we take a tackle or do we take a wide receiver? Remember last year in the last year in the first round, it was like, oh, are the Titans going to go Joe Alt? Are the Titans going to go Malik Neighbors? Are the Titans going to are they going to go tackle or wide receiver? We get in this situation all the time. Titans are probably going to be in that situation if they were to draft Abdul Carter or a quarterback. And also, we're not talking about defense today, but if you draft somebody other than Abdul Carter, you need to think about edge rushers too, So that's going to be interesting. I want to see the Titans need some youth in that room. They need some youth at wide receiver. Traylon didn't work out. Calvin Ridley's the only guaranteed guy coming back. They're going to have to hit up free agency at some point, right? They're going to have to hit up free agency for something, maybe a Tyler Boyd type role, but they need some spunk. They need some life at wide receiver. So we'll see how that all works out. And I really wish the Titans had a third round pick. That would help a lot. Tight end, I think Titans, with all the other needs, I think they're going to have to run it back with Chig and Josh Wiley and then just get a veteran guy similar to what they had with Nick VanEtte to just come in. I mean, they took 5 tight ends to the main roster last year, so surely they've got some guys that they can rely on because I just don't I see too many needs for the Titans to spend one on a tight end. Chig got better as the season went on, so I guess you just go with Chig, Wiley, and maybe you keep VanEtte or you replace him with another big guy. Quarterback, we'll end with a little bit of quarterback talk. There's a lot of talk about Will Levis, people talking about whether he's going to get a shot to come back. I personally don't see that happening. I think the Titans, even without saying it, I think the Titans have made their mind up. Will Levis is not going to be quarterbacking this team. If Will Levis is quarterbacking this team, you are pretty much telling Brian Callahan, you are fired. Just know the clock is ticking. You are fired. If you run it back with Will Levis, you can't run it back with Will. I think it's reading into things that they've said at the Senior Bowl with Borgonzi and Brinker and all of the different people that we have in that little unit now. I don't think Will Levis is quarterback in this team. The only way Will Levis would make this roster is if the Titans did not draft a quarterback, if they went with a bridge guy and they let Levis just play backup. That's the only way he's back on this team. Other than that, Appreciate you, Judah, the world destroyer. Other than that, I don't think Will Levis. I think they're going to try to trade him. And like I said, if you can get a 4th round pick for Will Levis, I think you take that all day long. If somebody's willing to give you a 4th rounder for Will, you take that all day long. But otherwise, I don't see Will coming back. Now, the question is, I'm like many of you. I would be very excited to see the Titans draft Cam Ward or Shedeur, but I like Cam Ward a little more right now. I would like to see the Titans draft either one of those guys. There's part of me that thinks even if they do, the Titans might still sign a veteran free agent, because these guys like the Green Bay way, Brinker and Borgonzi, they are big believers in setting the young quarterback for a little while and letting a veteran lead the way. So I think even if the Titans did draft Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, I think they could still bring in a Kirk Cousins who's going to be very cheap, very affordable. Derek Carr, I mean, that just makes me want to fall asleep right here in this chair, thinking about the Titans making a trade for Derek Carr. Especially, you got to give something up for Derek Carr. No, thank you. But you could go Cousins. You could go, what are the other names I had here? Russell Wilson. That could be interesting. I mean, because Russell Wilson, not anymore, but back in the day, he was the young, could extend plays with his legs, so maybe he could be a good mentor for a Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. Justin Fields, I think if you draft one of the Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, I don't think you pick up a guy like Justin Fields because he's still young. If you don't draft one of those guys, yeah, Justin Fields is an option. Sam Darnold, this feels like that's just expensive. Sam Darnold's going to be I think he lost some money with how bad he played in the playoffs, but if you draft Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders and you just need a veteran to play in front of him for a year, I don't think Sam Darnold is the answer to the question. Now, if you don't draft Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, then I guess Sam Darnold becomes a possibility. I know some people have mentioned trading for a guy like Joe Milton or Hendon Hooker or another intriguing backup from another team. That's just not going to happen. I'm telling you, the Titans aren't going to do that. Brian Callahan, again, do you understand how risky that would be for Brian Callahan to do something like that? I mean, to have to put your career in the hands of a guy who's been a backup somewhere else, coming in here and trying to start, that's not going to happen. And really for Borgonzi and Brinker too, they need to start figuring out how to win games. Even if you're not a playoff team, you got to figure out how to win more games and to be better than you were this year. That's got to happen immediately. So, I don't think that's going to happen. I think, it's going to come down to who they pick in the first round. Who knows? You could draft Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders and just say, we're giving it to them right off the bat. They're going to be the starting quarterback. But I could still see a scenario where you draft one of those guys and you just take Aaron Rodgers anyway. To just say, hey, you're going to start for a year and we're going to let them sit on the bench. Rodgers has done that before with Jordan Love. But there's a lot. There's a lot to think about. I hate that the Titans don't have a 3rd round pick because that really limits. I mean, to know that after you pick in the 2nd round, you've got to sit there and wait all the rest of the 2nd round, all through the 3rd round to pick again, that sucks. And for that reason, L'Jarius Sneed better get it together and play well this upcoming season. This is a Two-Tone Talk by God pod, staying way too high on the wins, way too low on the losses. Last podcast of January. I will see you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in. God bless you. Tighten up. Bye.